Hey, it's Susan Rolano here, relationship and marriage coach from Radiant Pathways, SusanRolano.com. And I know I have not been around here. I was out of town, and so I was not able to come in live, but I'm here live today. And I like to come in live and talk about a topic that is relevant to marriage, that is relevant to marriage. And I know that there are some people who have put their marriages together. There are some people in here who have, are on the brink of divorce. There are people in here who may have gotten divorced because I reopened this group after archiving it, and people in various phases of marriage. But that is the topic that I want to talk about because this is about marriage transformation. So what I wanted to talk about today is there is always a question when you get to a certain point in marriage, if things are not going well, where you ask yourself, should I stay? Should I stay in this marriage, or are we done? Should I go? And I know that there are people who are in that inquiry, in that quandary. It's a very painful place to be because you're really looking at, if I stay, are we going to be able to repair what has happened that has caused some damage for us? Or, I'm not getting my needs met, or somebody's not getting their needs met, or maybe there was a deal breaker, and I'll talk more about that happened. Or should I, maybe we have kids and we have younger kids and they need the two-parent family, or should I go? And I knew, when COVID came along, I said there were going to be a lot of babies being born, and there are going to be a lot of divorces, because part of what happens during a lockdown when people are together like that is that whatever has been swept under the rug comes out, because you're spending all that concentrated time together, when normally if you are two people working, you go to work, the other person goes to work, you come home, you have family time, you have together time, and you're not spending all day every day together. And maybe you go on the occasional vacation where you do that, but you're on vacation when you're doing that. So I knew that the lockdown and the COVID was going to cause a lot of couples to really see what was going on in their marriage. Like, they had to take a really close look at what was going on in the marriage, and some of it ended up being very difficult to look at. And there wasn't, I think therapists were really busy. I was focused on singles at the time. I was working with singles, and they were really alone. They really got how alone they were. I had a few couples that I was working with, and then I decided, I've worked with both singles and couples for 16 years, and I really love working with people who are married, people who are struggling. That's really where my passion is. I'm happy to work with singles. I work with a lot of divorced singles, and I'm happy to help them heal from their past and find the great love of their life. But I really love working with married couples who are struggling, or couples who are struggling. So that is why I have this group. That is why I am here. That is why we put this question out there, because it's a question that a lot of people are asking. First of all, and I always talk about the divorce rate statistics, they're very, very high. We've got a 50% divorce rate statistic on first marriages, pretty much in that neighborhood. What most people don't know, and I say it all the time, is that for second marriages, it's about 60 to 70%. And what happens is, you would think, you know what, I've been married before, I now know better. Well, if you don't make the changes that you needed to make, and you just take the same self that was in that other marriage and bring it into a second marriage, you're going to have a very similar difficult experience. And then now you have a higher likelihood that you're going to get divorced. So a lot of people who remarry, I've worked with people who've been married 2 or 3 times, because they take their same unhealed self, even if they've had marriage experience, and they go on to the next. And now they take more pain with them, and they go on to the next marriage, and they attract somebody who's going to sort of bring up some similar things. Now, I've been very blessed to have my second marriage work, but I did a lot of work in between marriages. And I had another relationship in between the marriages where I was sort of at an in-between place, where I was I had done some healing work, and there were still things that I needed to learn. So it was definitely a very nice person, definitely an upgrade from my first husband in terms of, the level of kindness and all that kind of stuff. But it certainly was not my person. I still had things to learn. And so then I really made it my mission to learn what I needed to learn, who I needed to become, what skills I needed to learn in order to have a marriage that was going to be with the great love of my life. And I did attract that person. And so I say to people who are in this quandary, should I stay or should I go? Sometimes it is years in the thought process. Do I really want to be in this marriage? I have a very, very dear friend who has been in a marriage for over 20, I think 22 years at this point, who has had that question going on for at least 20 of those years. Should I stay or should I go? They had a family of 5 where he had 2 kids from a previous marriage, she had 2 kids, and they had one together. So when they operated as a family, things seemed to be going really well, but they had a lot of differences in what they wanted out of a marriage that they didn't really discuss. And they had both of them had some inner things that she's very aware of what she has going on and she's working on it. But will she step out of this marriage because she knows it's not working for her? We don't know. It's a very difficult thing to do. It doesn't matter what age you are, whether you have young kids, whether you're empty nesters, whether you've been married 32 years. I worked with a gentleman who his wife was supposed to come on to the session with us, and she did not. At the last minute, they'd been separated for 3 months, and she was sort of in that, should I stay or should I go? And they'd been married for 32 years. And he was so honest about who he had been in the marriage, what he had done, the fact that he would hear what she had to say, but he didn't always think that her perspective was valid. And that really, there was a couple of main issues they had throughout the marriage. And so we put it to her, it's sort of like he was not interested in doing work for the sake of growth and healing and possibly getting divorced and moving on to having another marriage where it could actually be better. And I do take on people who are going to go through a divorce or have been divorced so that they learn how to do marriage if they want to get married again. Some people do. Some people swear off. Like I have somebody who swore off men. She's a friend of mine. She swore off men after this last relationship. And with my friends, it's hard because I can't coach them. You know what I mean? I can't coach them. They're my friends. And if they ask me a question that is more of a coachy question or even an intuitive question, because I do intuitive readings as well, it's not always my place. I can sort of tap in and give them some things, but they have to go through their own growth and learning. But it is difficult with this gentleman that I was speaking to, that his wife was in that place. Should I stay or should I go? They had separated for 3 months. He was going to do anything possible to win her back. And I really don't work with people who are trying to win a spouse back after they've been served divorce papers. And he did acknowledge later in our call that he had divorce papers that she had signed. But she was still not 100% there. She was leaning in that direction, but she wasn't 100% sure. So he felt there was a sliver of a chance that they could put things back together. He was willing to do whatever it took to get whatever help he needed, although they went to therapy, and after 2 sessions he said no, therapy is not it, which is why he was looking into coaching. The issue became that she decided she wanted to move forward with the divorce, and she was no longer open to repairing the marriage, and it was breaking his heart. And so she had been stewing for so many years. If I look through her eyes, because he told me a lot of the discussions they had about how she was feeling, and through her eyes, she had been pondering that question for many years. If you think about it, 32 years, she had been pondering that question for 10 years. Should she stay or should she go? And finally, she just up and left and separated and was ready to get the divorce. And then she was rethinking it. She was going back and forth. And that is a painful place to be, to not know what you want to do. And she ultimately decided she wanted to move forward with the divorce. And so if you are in a situation, because let's face it, you know, some people get the average age, and I think this is bizarre statistics, in the United States, the average age people get married right now, 34 years old. But the average age of divorce is 30. So that doesn't make sense to me. So a lot of people, you know, we had a time where people were getting married at 19, 20 years old. Now people, you know, some people get married later. Some people get married in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. It's all over the place. But if the divorce rate statistics say that the average age of divorce is 30, then people are getting married in their 20s. Most people who end up divorced stay together either for 30-something years and wait till the kids are gone and all that kind of stuff, or they get divorced after 2 years, 5 years, and 7 years. They joke about calling it the 7-year itch. For whatever reason, 7 years seems to be a very popular time for people to get divorced and make that decision. But here's the thing, we evolve. Whatever age we are when we get married, we evolve, our partner evolves, and if we don't evolve in the marriage, and if we don't stay mindful with the marriage, and if we don't learn what we need to learn as we evolve as people, then the marriage is going to go like that. There's going to be a big gap in there, and a lot of things are going to fall apart. If you don't have a solid foundation, I mean, you took vows when you get married. You take the vows, you say, oh, I promise to this, that, and the next thing. And then sometimes these commitments you make when you get married get stale. They're not living on solid ground. Some people get lost in their own issues, or they get really focused on their career, or when children come into the picture, the family gets more attention than the couple. And so many things shift and change that if you don't continue your growth in the marriage, then the marriage does not have a really good chance and may go through this inquiry. Should I stay or should I go? And part of the way to make that decision, first of all, if you get support, that I think it's a really good thing. I think if you love your partner and there is a sliver of a part of you that wants, both of you that wants to stay, I do believe that a marriage can be saved, which is why I do the work that I do. It can be transformed. If the marriage started out great and then took a turn, I know I can help people get back on track. That's exactly what I do. However, there is such a thing, and one of the things I like to do with people is have them clarify where they're at with their core values for relationship and marriage, their needs, and their requirements. And the requirements is the list that is the deal maker, deal breaker list. And the requirement list is, it means if one thing gets violated or broken, the marriage or relationship is over, or somebody's deciding to sacrifice something that is that important to them, a deal breaker. And I've seen people go both ways. I've seen people get divorced and because there was a deal breaker, and I've seen people decide that no, their marriage is worth saving, and we've been able to repair the situation. So you want to check to see what are your relationship core values right now. How have they evolved since the two of you got married? If you're in this quandary, should I stay or should I go? The needs list is a list of, and this is part of the work that I do, that I'm sharing with you, not just a Band-Aid. If you have a list of needs, these are things that may, if the need is not met, may piss you off a little bit, may cause conflict, but it won't end the marriage. This is stuff like, you know, my spouse leaves clothes all over the floor, or I ask them to do the dishes and they don't do them. Nothing's ever about the dishes. So these are things that are, you know, I need a little more affection than I'm getting. There are things that are, we'll call them negotiable items, right? Like clothes on the floor is a negotiable item. You know, sometimes if people are casual drinkers, that can either be a deal breaker or that can be a negotiable item. It depends. If somebody goes into full-on addiction and that is a deal breaker for somebody, I had a client who, and I actually performed their wedding ceremony, and the deal was he had to get help and stop drinking. And he agreed to it. He made the commitment to do it. We performed, I did the, literally in my backyard, I officiated their wedding ceremony, and I'm legally allowed to do that in all the states that we have here in the US. And he reneged on the deal that he made with her. The addiction was so strong that he went for help for like literally 5 minutes, went to 12-step, all that kind of stuff, and then backed out of it and just would not stop drinking. So she was faced on a should I stay or should I go? And because substance abuse and addiction was a deal breaker for her, she had a young daughter, that was a little scary for her. She had to get the divorce because otherwise she would have been sacrificing herself. And so that's what she decided to do. They didn't come back to me for it. She was just like, no, we're done. I don't even want to try to fix this. She was not even trying to fix it because he made a deal with her and he broke that deal, and that was a deal breaker for her. So if you're on the fence about should I stay or should I go, you want to take into consideration, do I still want to be here? Do I still want to be here? Do I still have feelings for this person even though we've grown and evolved? Even those things are not all working in place. Maybe we don't have the intimacy we used to. Maybe we argue a lot. But do I still want to work things through with this person? That's the first thing you want to think about. Is there hope here? And not to stay married for the kids, and not to stay married because, you know, that's what happens in your culture or your family, this or that. You want to decide to stay married because it's in your heart to do so. Not because it makes sense, not because it's cheaper to keep her, so to speak, or it's cheaper to stay married financially. It's you want to make that decision from your heart, from your soul, from your inner knowing, because we all have a sense of inner knowing. And if you feel guided to stay married to the person, then you want to get the support you need to help put the marriage back together in a place that works for both of you, that you can actually feel more excited about than you did when you first got married, because that is absolutely possible. If you're in a place where you're just not feeling that there's love there, you don't feel like you really like the person anymore, you feel where you've had the deal breaker happened, you know, whether it's infidelity, or that's a deal breaker for a lot of people, but a lot of people will try to repair that, and I help a lot of people do that. It is not an easy thing to work through for both parties, because people don't cheat because they have nothing better to do. People cheat for a lot of different reasons, and we try to get to the core, the root reason why that happened, so that the person understands what they were trying to get. And I'm not talking about sex, what they were really trying to get by stepping out of their marriage. Were they doing it because they were getting revenge on their partner who hurt their feelings somewhere? Why were they doing it? So we can take some of the most difficult situations and transform a marriage and bring it back together even better than before. But you have to really decide, do I want to? Do I want to? And if you think you're going to get divorced and meet somebody else who's going to be better and not do the work, then you're sadly, sorely mistaken. And as I said before, second marriages and third marriages have a much higher divorce rate because people think because they've been married before that it's just a different person that's needed. What's really needed is the change that has to come on the inside for you to make the changes you need so that you can attract better, you can be a better partner. So things to look at: do I want to stay? Do I want this to really work? Even if I'm hurt, do I want this to work? Second thing, what are my core values? Do I feel like I can meet my core relationship marriage values in this situation? They were met at one point. Can they be met again? And are my needs being met? Are there negotiable things that we could just negotiate if we have the right help to do so and get those things back on track? Like clothes on the floor, or it's like some of it is these are the needs that people do need, but again, they're not the thing that's going to end the marriage. They will piss you off, annoy you, irritate you, but they're not the things that are going to end a marriage. It's that deal maker requirement list. If you say something's a requirement, then what you're saying is that my entire requirement list can be met, but if one thing is broken, the marriage is over. That's how important that requirement list is. So if you find that you're in this quandary, should I stay or should I go, and you have a requirement that got broken, then that's something you have to think about. Am I going to go because that's my boundary line, that's my requirement, that's a no-no in my life, I'm not having it? Or am I willing to sacrifice that, see if we can work through it, and see if we can heal from it and move forward in a better way? Don't try that on your own, because if something is a deal breaker, or even if you're having challenges in the marriage, trying to do this on your own, if it's like, oh, if I just try a little harder, or if I just ignore this and pretend it's not happening, or maybe I can find some great advice on the internet, or maybe if I read a good book, then we can implement this in our marriage and it'll work. And I wrote a book, and I'm sorry, but it's like none of the authors, unless the book is part of a coaching, therapy, or some program that they offer, it's not going to help, because the author's not going to jump out at you and say, I'm going to take you by the hand, I'm going to help you work through this. You may read books, marriage books, that are really awesome, and I think there are some really awesome books out there. Mine was called Remarrying Right. It was all about the second, the third marriage, where I talk about the divorce rate statistics being even higher. But there are things in there that are applicable to any marriage, to a first marriage, to any marriage. I'm going to write another book at some point, but as the author, I'm not jumping out for anybody who bought the book to work with them unless they reach out to me and decide that they want to work with me. That's the way I can help, but books don't help you really implement anything. And those boot camps and like marriage weekends and those kinds of things, you may have a great weekend away or a week retreat or whatever you're going on, but again, then it becomes about accountability, implementation, being your word that you're going to do the things that you had aha moments about, or that will change the marriage. And a lot of people have a hard time staying accountable. So the best way to answer the question is to work with somebody who can help you answer it. And should I stay or should I go? If you know that the deal breakers have been broken and you're not willing to work on it, or you don't want to, don't stay for the kids. It's hard on kids. Divorce is. I know it is. I was the child of divorced parents when I was 9 years old. And I got divorced, but we didn't have kids, so that wasn't an issue. I'm part of a big blended family where I had, when my mom and stepfather were alive, we had mom, stepdad. Stepdad had 2 kids, and they had kids, and on my dad's side, he got remarried, and both of them, second marriage did work, but they did the work before they got married again. And so my dad is still with us. He's 82 years old, and his wife is 80, and they're still spry and doing great. They've been together since 1979. She had 2 kids from a prior marriage, and now, of course, those 2 kids have kids. My brother has kids. And so I have 2 step siblings and 1 biological sibling on each. Well, I have 2 step siblings on each side of the family and 1 biological siblings, and a lot of nieces and a couple of nephews. So when you think about staying together for the kids, it's a noble thing to want to do, but what you're modeling for your kids it's sort of like they're going to be damaged if you get divorced, and they're going to be damaged if you stay. And so it's going to impact your kids regardless of the decision you make. So if you make a decision to say, oh, we're going to stay for the kids, what you're modeling for them is sacrifice, fighting, conflict. They're going to pick up the energy of the marriage that's not working. Unless you get help so that it can work, then they're going to pick up on, oh, things can be worked out. If you get divorced, which is a very painful experience, some of you have been through it, then the kids are going to, there's just a way to deal with divorced kids. And if you're so wrapped up in your own pain that you're not going to get help for your kids, this is when you want to get help for your kids and you want to get help for yourself. So if you are on the fence about this, it's a question that you need to answer. And if your answer is we want to work things through, then I have something for you. I offer what I call a free discovery call. And the discovery call helps us look at what's not been working in the marriage, what needs to be repaired, and what you both really want. And I offer it to, if one person comes in and the other person is on board, that's okay too if one person does, because it's going to rub off on the other person. Because I've seen it happen before, time and time again. If both people want help and they've been through therapy, or they've read books, or they've looked up on the internet and things have not been saved, things are not better, then I'm definitely somebody you would want to talk to. And on this call, we determine whether we are a fit. I do provide value on the call. I don't want people to just come in as a sales call. But if I see that I can help you 100% transform and save your marriage, then I will discuss what that looks like. And you can either say yes or no. But the people that I'm looking for are people who are super committed. They know they want to stay together. They just don't know how to repair what's happened. And they are people who will, be very decisive, be very resourceful, be willing to open themselves up, be honest, vulnerable, share, and be very coachable to take the coaching that I give them. So if you are interested in getting help, or I do offer a complimentary discovery call, and people ask me all the time, how much is that call? I'm like, it's free. There's no, it's like your obligation is to, once you book it, is you'll have a questionnaire to answer. Your obligation is to show up. That's it. And whether I decide to invite you in, because I don't invite everybody to work with me, whether I think you're somebody that I can work with or I can help or is a good fit for what I do, and I invite you in, I'll talk about everything involved. And if you're interested in doing the work beyond that call, we'll have a discussion about that and see if we're fit to work together. But don't keep yourself on the fence. Find the side of the fence that you want to be on and do it from your heart. Do it from your requirement list and your core values, and really make a decision, because the longer you go with the indecision, the more painful your life is. So make a decision, and if your decision is we want to work through the marriage, then let's have a conversation. Let's have this discovery call to see if we're a fit to work together, and then I can help you save and transform that marriage. So I hope this has been helpful today, and so you can go to susanortolano.com, check out my website. You can book that discovery call there, or I can leave my information and it'll take you directly to that discovery call booking, which sometimes I forget to do, but I will do it this time. I will probably do it a little later today. So whoever has listened to this on replay, thank you. If not, too bad. I have several Facebook Lives that I have in the featured area. If you come into this group, realize that it exists or that it's still there. There are lots of things, Facebook Lives, that I've done over the last couple months for you to listen to. So that is it for me today. I will be back next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.